All right, so my name is James, otherwise known as Juggling, Matt's dad, and we're featuring none other than Matt Walmsley, my
Nice to meet
son.
you.
So glad to have you here, Matt. And I'd like to talk about some things today, and I have some questions for you. So we're just going to go through them and see where it takes us. So what I wanted to ask you just to start out is, how did you begin juggling? We don't have any history of juggling in our family. I juggled with my friends on my neighbor's back porch, and that was about it. Just like everybody, right? I just kind of messed around with it. But how did you get into it the way you are? It's
All
just
right.
impressive to me.
Let's start back when I was 10 years old. You, my dad, were a person who supported me throughout my baseball career. And when I was 10 years old, I tore my rotator cuff, so I hurt a muscle in my shoulder, and I was no longer able to throw a baseball, to hit a tennis ball, to throw a frisbee, do any of the sports that I did for the longest time. And you know how much of an impact that had on my
I
life.
remember that. That was a tough time. Very tough.
I have a question for you. Are there any memories that really stick out to you that where I was lost not knowing what to do?
Well, I do. I distinctly remember. I mean, you were a great pitcher, right? You would just mow down the batters. You were the closer, and and then one day he just goes out on the mound and he just starts like not he can't even reach the plate, and the coach is super frustrated, and everything just fell apart. And I'm like, what is going on here? And Matt's like, Dad, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, why? He goes, I can't. My arm hurts. And the next thing you know, we found out he had almost like a rotator cuff tear or something that we couldn't solve. He was a young guy, and
Something messed up.
we didn't want to go through surgery, so we decided to back away from baseball and see if we could help him heal on his own. And that's where we were left. And he was aimless. He had nothing to do. Baseball was his focus. So one day I just said, Matt, look, I know you can't throw like this, but can you go like this? And he said, oh yeah, that feels fine. And I said, why don't you just try to juggle? That'll give you something to do. And the next thing you know, along with some other things like bottle flipping and making ping pong ball contraptions, Matt got into
Wow.
juggling.
Well,
Remember
let me
that?
mention something cool. Do you remember Rube Goldberg machines?
Yeah, yeah.
That was something that I was very much interested in. And as I began to learn juggling and do more stuff with juggling, I began to expand my knowledge of Rube Goldberg machines and trick shots. And all
Yeah,
this stuff that I did it turned into what I did with juggling. Like some of my favorite juggling tricks are considered trick shots in my mind.
right.
I did a trick where I put a ball between my legs, threw a multiplex up in the air, which just means I throw multiple balls at the same time,
Hmm.
and went into a crazy pattern that is super difficult. And in my mind, I count that as a trick shot. So going back to my origins of ping pong bounces into beer cups, that all is a part of my journey. And when you
Right.
mentioned going up to the mound and throwing that pitch that didn't even make it to the catcher's mitt,
Yeah,
that really brings back some memories in my mind.
right.
And
Those were tough times, I'm telling you.
it was an ego hit at the time.
Yeah.
I was prideful as a pitcher, one of
Hmm.
the star on the team. I was always the one who finished out the game strong. They called me the bulldog,
Right.
and my nickname and my name, my representation of myself was being crushed
Right. Your whole
day by
identity
day.
was in that. Yeah.
My identity. And I think that's a crucial part. When I was going to
Hmm.
my new physical therapist, he asked me a very critical question that I can relate to this. He said, what about juggling is so important to you? Why do you juggle? Why do you do this thing every day, no matter how much it hurts your body, no matter how hard it is, how many
Right.
competitions you do? And what it made me realize is that it's a part of my identity. It's who I am now. It's not
Yeah.
just what I do, it's who I am. And if something gets in the way of me doing what I believe is a part of me, that hurts your pride. It hurts your ego. It hurts who you believe yourself to be.
Right.
And especially with the beginning of juggling, I started to form a new identity. I started to escape
Uh
this
huh.
baseball mentality and start to build this unstoppable mindset of reforming my identity with something new, something different,
Yeah.
which was juggling. And as a 10-year-old, where nobody else in my school knew how to juggle, I was addicted. I replaced my obsession with baseball with my
Yeah.
obsession to juggle.